Good morning, happy people! Welcome to another segment of the Door Project. We start out with showing you a shot of the entryway to our bathroom as it was when I started renovating the house when we bought it some years ago. Alright, here we go. Okay, folks, we're back inside the house now. We need to remove the baseboard trim on either side of this doorway. And this is Stiggers, our part Maine Coon. He's about 6 months old now. He just loves doing all kinds of crazy stuff. But anyway, we're gonna start out by using a X-Acto blade or box knife to score the top of the paint and caulking on top of here so that when we pull it up, we're not pulling paint off the wall. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to use a hammer and a pry bar, nice flat pry bar, to pry the molding off the wall. So here we go. So that blade gets nicely right behind the molding. We'll cut just like that. Get around the whole thing. Okay. So after we get this cut off, we'll set it aside because later on we're going to have to reuse some of these pieces, cut them and reuse them after we get the trim molding from the door all set up on here. So let's close this up for safety. Grab our pry bar and see if we can get this stuff off. So it should come off pretty easy, just like that. What's that, Stiggers? Huh? So you just gotta watch out when you lay it down, you don't step on these nails that are sticking out here. So we'll put it off to the side where nobody steps on it. Watch out, Stiggy. Alright, you knuckle butt. Alright, he's over here chewing on it. Come on, stop it. You little crazy cat. Go back there. That's all removed. We're going to come back and with a pair of pliers, we're going to pull these nails, or these brads, they got stuck in the wall, and then we'll be ready to start fitting the wood in, or the frame. Alright, we got a pair of lineman pliers, and we're going to pull these nails out. Easier said than done. Ugh. sometimes it's just easier to break them off. All right. Okay. So that's that. We're ready to start installing the door frame. So, step one to finishing up our frame is going to be to measure out where we want our hinges to go. And we're going to have to cut some door hinge slots out. And in this project, since the doors are very lightweight and only 18 inches wide, we decided we're going to go with 2 hinges on either side. So we have our hinges. And I'm going to measure off where the hinges are going to go. I'm going to come up with the measurement for the top and the bottom, and then I'm going to draw some lines on here also for when I go to drill these boards into the wall. I don't want screws to be visible, so I measured the door outside. The thickness of the door is 1 3/8 inches. So I'm going to make a line 1 3/8 inches from inside, and then I'm going to go the thickness, the width of my center board. I'm going to measure that, and I'm going to go halfway between that, and I'm going to draw a line down the entire length of this frame part, because that's where I'm going to put my screws into the wall. So I have my shim packs, and the shims are going to go behind each side of the frame to put it to the right position and make sure everything is nice and plumb with the level. And then we'll drive the screws through the frame down the line that we're going to draw. And that way when we install our door trim inside the center, it'll cover up all those screw holes. So right now we're going to take a measurement of where we want our hinges, and then we're going to draw a line down either side of each of the door, and we'll take these outside and cut out our cutouts for the hinges. So let's start out by using a machinist square to draw the line, since that's the simplest. So we know the door is 1 3/8 inches wide, so that would be that, right? 1 3/8 inches. Inch and 3/8, and I know that my board, the center board, is going to be approximately 1.5 inches. So if I take 1.5 inches divided by 2, that's 0.75. If I add 1 3/8 inches to that, it's going to give me 2 1/8. So if I set my machinist square to 2 1/8 inches, I can take my mechanical pencil, use the edge of the thing, and slide it down the board with the pencil. Scribing a line down the center of the board. I'm going to do the same on the other side. So now I know that when I drive my screws into this frame, into the wall, I know that having it on that center line, it'll be covered up by the center strip and it won't be visible in the end product. Okay, now that we have our line scored down the entire length of the board for our marking where our screws are going to go, we're going to measure out where we're going to put our hinges. So, grab a tape measure, and we know that the door is going to be 79.5 inches tall. So we're going to go 8 inches from the top and 8 inches from the bottom up, and put the respective hinge. Let me open this up real quick. So from the top, we're going to go 8 inches from the top, and then the top of the hinge will be 8 inches from the top of the frame. And on the bottom, we're going to go 8 inches to the bottom side of the hinge on the bottom frame. That'll give us a good, solid, easy measurement that we can put on here. So there's 8 inches. And that's roughly about what it looks like on my door on the front of the house, or on the front of the room. So that's going to be a good space to put the hinges. So now we're going to measure from here to the top. We're going to draw a shape around the hinge, and we're going to do the same at the bottom on both sides, top and bottom. So that's 8 inches. I'm going to fold that back, take my pencil, draw. So there. We go 8 inches from the bottom and do the same thing. That's the bottoms. One more up top. Okay. So now we'll go outside and cut some slots in here, and then we'll install the hinges here and look and measure and cut the slots for the doors. Okay, so now we have to cut the cutouts for the hinges into the door frame. But before we start, we need to take our trim router, remove the battery, make sure there's no power to it. And we're going to set our depths of cut by using the hinge as a guide and setting the blade to the depth of the hinge. It's about right there. So, got that set. Now, set that aside. We need to clamp down our wood. So because the hinges are going right next to each other in the little square, there's some right here, right? I'm gonna put the boards side by side, align them up using a piece of wood, make sure they're perfect in center, and I'm going to use a piece of hardwood, scrap hardwood, and some clamps to clamp this down to the table so that it doesn't move. Alright. clamp down. Then I'm going to grab another clamp. And I'm going to clamp the wood together so that it doesn't move. Make sure everything's nice and tight, flush and lined up. Now, use our safety. Put our battery in. And we're going to cut the inside of this thing out. Alright, let's unclamp this and do the other side. Okay, here we go. Excellent. Right. Now we'll take our clamps off. And you can see our hinge fits nice and perfect inside the slot. Alright, next we'll measure up the doors. So, I've aligned the doors on my table with an 1/8 inch gap at the top using a known 1/8 inch thick gauge. I lined it up so that there's an 1/8 inch gap at the top of the door on both sides. Alright, that puts my hinge right here. So what I'm going to do is draw a line up either side like that on both the top and the bottom side of the door, and that's where the hinges are going to go. I know that later on I'm going to need to cut about 3/4 of an inch to an inch off the bottom of the door to be in 1/2 inch up off the floor, which is kind of like that. So it's going to go straight across there on both sides. And that'll give me the 1/2 inch gap at the bottom of the door that I'm looking for. And I know that my hinges will line up perfectly on both sides, cutting them in the same place as the cutouts are. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that now. Okay, that's the top. Now I'll go to the bottom. Okay, so I know the hinge sits in there like this, right? So if I set this down inside here like that, move this out the way, I know the hinge sits like this. So I can flip this over, lock it in place, and then I can draw the hinge slot. So that's where the hinge is going to go. I'm going to do that to all 4 corners. Alright, now I'm going to use the trim router again, and I'm going to flip the doors up, clamp them together, and hold them in place, and cut those slots out. Trying to think of the best way to hold this. I'll lay it on its side. cement that all up. Okay, here we go. All right. I'm gonna go off camera and do the rest, and we'll come back together soon. Okay, as we see, our hinge slots line up, and now we're going to go down, mark off, and cut the bottom of the door. All right, so I've measured this out and placed the fence at 7/8 of an inch off the cut to cut off 7/8 at the bottom of the door, which will leave me with a 3/8 gap at the bottom of the door, which is roughly what I want. A 1/2 inch is just a little high, so 3/8 I think would be a little bit better for me, so that's what I'm gonna roll with. So we're gonna cut the bottom of these doors off now. All right, here we go. So, and as you see, that left a hollow gap at the bottom of the door. So we're gonna cut some wood and fill it in here and glue it in place and clamp it down and make it all dry. So we're gonna do that next, but let's go cut the other door first. That one has a solid core left in there, so this one should be okay. So now we're going to use this core to measure the piece of wood that we need to cut to fill the gap of that bottom. So take a tape measure. So we know that this right here is the side of the door on either side. So we need to measure between that. And I get 16 1/8 inches. And the thickness of it is going to be 1 1/8. So we're going to see what we got that we can fit the bill with. Let's go find what we got in our scrap pile. So we got some strips of pine here. I'll be able to cut this down to 1 1/8 inch, and we'll make it 16 1/8 inches long, and we'll stuff that in the bottom of the door with some glue and call it a day. So first, we're going to set the fence to 1 1/8 inch. That's the thickness of our wood, or the thickness of the piece we need. Actually, what we may just go and do is reuse the piece that's in here. We'll cut the sides off, cut the ends off, and use it. That way I don't gotta cut up a nice piece of wood. So what I did is I set the fence so that the saw blade just cuts this side off, and then I'll flip it around and reset it so that it cuts the other side off. Let's lower the blade a little. Okay. Get a push stick. Now we'll reset the fence. Perfect. Now, let's cut the ends off. For that, we use a miter. Alright, perfect. Now we have a core that will stuff in the bottom of the door, glue it in place, and be good to go. Alright, so here's the bottom of the door. We're going to use a knife blade to scrape off some glue residue in here from the original cut. All right, test fit. like it was made for it. Probably because it was. If I can get it back out. Alright, we'll apply some glue in there, stuff this in place, throw some clamps on it, and we'll call it a day and get back to work on putting the frame up. Trusty old glue bottle. So let's see, we're gonna put a little bit of glue on the top. On the other side. And stuff it in the hole. Alright, I'm going to clamp that up and we'll let it dry. Clamps down here. Alright, we'll let that dry and go work on the frame.